Bonjour à toutes et à tous, nous vous remercions de votre présence. Avant de commencer, nous voudrions partager avec vous quelques informations concernant la manière d'interagir durant le webinaire. Premièrement, aujourd'hui nous parlerons principalement en anglais. Si vous n'êtes pas à l'aise avec cela, il n'y a pas de problème, nous déposerons l'enregistrement du webinaire sur YouTube. Deuxièmement, si vous désirez poser une question ou faire une remarque, s'il vous plaît, écrivez votre nom dans le chat. Si vous babeltowerwebinars@gmail.com. Nous serons attentifs aux emails envoyés durant le webinaire au cas où vous rencontreriez un problème technique de dernière minute et mettrons tout en œuvre afin de répondre à votre demande. La plateforme Teams est un outil que nous utilisons en raison des circonstances actuelles, mais nous ne gérons pas cet outil de manière professionnelle. Nous essayons de faire de notre mieux pour offrir la meilleure expérience possible pour tout le monde. Troisièmement, nous vous rappelons également de bien vouloir désactiver votre microphone pendant les interventions. Si vous utilisez votre caméra, soyez donc attentifs à ce qui apparaîtra à l'écran. Si vous avez des questions sur l'organisation ou un problème technique, n'hésitez pas à nous contacter via le chat ou par le mail Babeltower. Nous vous remercions pour votre attention et nous vous souhaitons un bon webinaire. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Before starting, we would like to share with you some information on how to interact during the webinar. First, today we will talk in English. If you don't feel comfortable with that, don't worry. We will upload the registration of the webinar on YouTube. Second, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, please write your name in the chat. If you cannot use the chat, please write us an email to babeltower@gmail.com. We will check it also during the webinar in order to try to assist if you have any last-moment technical issue. The Teams technology is a mean that we are using due to the current circumstances. We do not manage this tool professionally, but we are trying to do our best for making this a nice experience for all of us. Third, we kindly remind you to silence your microphone during the intervention. If you use the webcam, please be conscious of what will appear on the screen. If you have any question about the organization or a technical problem, do not hesitate to contact us by chat or the Babeltower email. Thank you and enjoy it.
Okay, if you, Manuelina, want to add something, otherwise we can start. Welcome everybody. Thank you, Pauline, for reading the rules. So this is the last webinar. Of course, we do have a last one, which is going to be on Monday, and Monday is going to be the conclusion where we are going to sum up and summarize and do some closing reflections and remark of what we are discussing during this webinar. And today we close with this journey around the world with Belgium. So the geography which we are going to explore today is Belgium, and we have three. We want to thank you, our three guests, which are going to share their experience and work, which they are doing with museums in the Belgium context. The first one is Olga Van Oost, which is the director of the Flemish Institution for Cultural Heritage, FARO. And she's gonna share her reflections related with the concept of agonistic museum. And so she will give us some details about this concept and also share her work. After Olga, we will have Gladys Verkamen-Gradien. Gladys is the coordinator of Brussels Museum project called Open Museum, and she also will add some reflection based on her experience with that. And the last guest today is going to be Kim Kappart. So also Kim will share her work, and they will complement themselves due to the different geographies inside Belgium where they are working. And we will start having a quick presentation from each of them. And today we would like to organize the conversation in a more dialogical with a more dialogical approach, so that meaning that they will have less time to do the first presentation, and then we will ask them to react based on the other's presentation, and then we would like you to comment and of course ask questions to them in order to make these more dynamic. So I'm gonna leave the floor to Olga, then to Gladys and Kim with their first introduction, and then we will ask them to do some reflection based on each other presentation. So Olga, the floor is yours, and you can share your screen.
Okay, thank you. So it's I cannot see the chat, so I have to say that in advance. So if you have questions for me or remarks, please send them in another way, or maybe others can have a look at the chat. It's okay that I will start, because I thought maybe Gladys would start first, but it's okay. Eh? So also for Gladys, I guess. Okay, then I'll just try to share my screen and search for my presentation. Okay, just hold on. Okay. Okay, yes. It's not working, I think. Nothing is happening.
No, but
yes, hold on. I'll just try again once more.
Otherwise, if you need more time to adjust that, we can ask Gladys to start, and then we will follow with you. Is that okay?
I don't think that will make a difference. Maybe one of you should share my presentation, and then I can take over.
Okay, I can do that, but I would at this point I would like Gladys to start so that I can organize the sharing of your presentation.
I was actually really counting on Olga starting the conversation.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you, Gladys, and sorry. I also probably confused that.
Yeah, because it, especially looking at Olga's presentation, it makes a lot more sense that she starts, but sure, I'll begin. Okay. Let's see. Voila. Can you actually see what I'm presenting?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you put full screen?
Yeah, I'm working on it. A minute.
Sure, sorry.
All right, so, does it work?
No,
Are you still seeing it? Because now it says that it disappeared because I went full screen. Can you see it now?
We see just the first slide. Can you move the slides?
Okay.
No, it's not working. Okay, no, yes, it's working.
It's working? Okay, and can you see the full screen?
It's not full screen for us, but we can see whatever, so it's okay. We can go as it is.
So can you see it now or not?
We see it. it is not full screen, but we can see the slides, so I think it's okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know. Okay, sorry.
Teams is always a mystery for
Yeah,
us.
It
So.
really is. It really is. Okay. Yeah. So sorry. I'll just do it like this then, and
Okay.
then we'll take it from there. All right. So thank you everyone for being there. Okay. So I am Gladys, and I work for Brussels Museums, which is the Brussels Museums Council, and I coordinate the Open Museum project. Yeah, anyway, so I'll start by oh, I'm sorry, I'm really like all right, I'll just start from zero. So hello everyone, my name is Gladys Verkamen-Grandjean. I live and work in Brussels. I work for the Brussels Museums Council, where I'm the coordinator of the project Open Museum, which I will tell you a bit about more, but I will start by maybe presenting Brussels Museums, because it might be that not all of you know exactly what Brussels Museums does in the first place, and then I'll dive more specifically into Open Museum. So Brussels Museums was born, or at least came to life in 1995. At first, it was about 15 Brussels museums that decided they wanted to create a platform with each other to better communicate. But we have grown over the past couple of years, over the past 25 years. And right now, we are more than 120 museums and art centers within Brussels that we unite. I'd say that the main credentials you have to be part of the Brussels Museums Council is that obviously you have to be located within the Brussels region. You have to have some kind of educational services, so there needs to be some kind of mediation with the public, and obviously our museums and art centers are not supposed to be, for profit. So that is also a reason why art galleries, where they sell art, cannot be included in our council. But so when I speak about 120 museums and art centers, I'm really talking about a very diverse bunch. So there's the big ones, right? The museums of art and history, of fine arts, Beaux-Arts, etc. But there's also very small museums. We range from museums that maybe have staff made out of volunteers versus museums that employ over 250 people. The museums themselves can be small private museums, can be government funded, can be regionals or city museums. And in general, Brussels Museums' task is to really bring together those museums, have them exchange with one another, and in the end really try to give kind of a modern look and feel to museums, to value their image within our society. I'd say that probably the projects we're most known for are our events. This one, I'm not sure if you can actually see it move or not. Yeah, so it might be a bit hypnotizing.
Yes.
This is what's happening right now. Actually, we had the first night yesterday. So Nocturne is also something that's, it's one of our oldest projects, let's say. It's every Thursday evening. Usually it used to be during autumn, but because of COVID and having to cancel some of our other events, we had to switch around the calendar. And so now it has become a spring event. And Nocturne is basically every Thursday night, 10 weeks in a row, that a different bunch of museums, usually always in the same area, open their doors and are also accessible at a lower fare. And they usually also have some kind of activities. We had another event that we made as kind of a response to the fact that we had to cancel our main event, Museum Night Fever, which I will show you later. It was called Come Back. It was during the déconfinement in October. So it just kind of shows you what we try to do with Brussels museums is really kind of take the museums out of the box and have them become a different experience than just your regular museum visit. And I'd say that probably our most known event is Museum Night Fever, which usually always takes place in March. And sadly, in 2020, it was the first weekend of the very first lockdown, so we had to cancel it. But just to give you, does the video actually work or not?
It works, yes.
Voila. And the reason I kind of wanted to start, or at least end the presentation on Brussels Museum, specifically with Museum Night Fever, is because, as you might have noticed in the video, it's really taking museums out of their ordinary context. And specifically for Museum Night Fever, we've always worked with young artists, and we've always matched up different social cultural association, young people, etc., with the museums, and in a very participatory approach. It's the young artists that get to choose what they want to do in the museum. So the time of one night, it's not the museum that gets to decide the programming, it's actually outsiders who kind of get museums as their game scene. And in a sense, I would like to say that this is the philosophy that Open Museums started with, where we could notice at the time of one night, or like with Nocturne several nights, we're really able to reach a completely different demographic in our audience, and we get very young people, and especially because Brussels is such a cosmopolitan and diverse city, it's one of the few nights where you see the people you usually see, you cross in the metro and public transport, on the streets, where you actually see them within the museums. So that's when we started to think, how can we make sure that this just doesn't apply to one event, but that we can structurally apply that kind of approach in the way that museums approach their diversity politics, for instance. And so that's how we kind of thought of the project Open Museums, where in our ideal world, a museum would be a safe space, or at least a safer space, where each and every single one of us would feel represented and especially welcome, no matter what their gender or skin color or ethnicity or a disability, sexual orientation, religion, socioeconomic status, your level of education, your age, etc., where all that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. And to do this, we're kind of zooming in on what we like to call the 5 Ps, right? We have the P of personnel, so personnel staff, public, programmation, partnerships, and then also place. And by place, we mean not only the physical space that museums take up with their buildings, but also how museums, especially now in the digital age, represent themselves digitally. To do this, actually, Open Museum is kind of done on 3 levels. And so this is what I am basically coordinating within Brussels museums. So obviously it starts internally, because you have to practice what you preach. So for that, we have with our team, and so we're 8 people in total, just so you know, we have set into place a diversity plan. Externally, I kind of make the distinction between externally versus museums and then externally versus our public, which is definitely, I think, the last step and where there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the future. Towards the museums, what we're trying to do with Open Museum is first seeing do our Brussels museums actually have some kind of diversity and inclusion strategies already written out or implemented? And for now I've already done these kind of in-depth interviews with about 20 different museums, and from those 20 museums there's only 1 or 2 who have really put a strategy, as in how does our museum become more inclusive on those 5 P levels. There's maybe only 1 or 2 who have really thought this through. So with Open Museum, what we're really trying to do is to guide them through workshops, but also just going in and talking to them, and especially trying to convince the directors to join us in that, reflection. And then we also organize des journées d'études, so conferences. We had one on the 9th of March. And this year especially, we also set up an external think tank, which I will get back to later, because the idea in 2021 is that for all Brussels museums, with our museums and with the external think tank, we work together on a diversity charter that then afterwards the museums can apply to their own context. Because as I said at the beginning, Brussels museums represent 120 museums. I think it's quite impossible to tackle all 120 at the same time. But we can start with a small group, even 20 is not that small, and then kind of take it from there. But like I said, the museums are very diverse, so it makes sense that not every museum will be able to implement all the recommendations at the same speed, over the same timeline, with the same kind of resources as well. So those are all things that we need to keep in mind. And then just as a quick note to where Open Museum would like to evolve to, for now you could say that Open Museum is still one of the projects of Brussels museums. But as we're now also completely rewriting our new global strategy for Brussels museums for 22 until 26, we're really trying to see how the philosophy of Open Museum, right, like that whole inclusive philosophy, how that can become one of the pillars of Brussels museums in general, and not just kind of a separate project. Yeah, this was just to show you the conference, online conference. Sadly, we had to do it online as well, that we had on the 9th of March, where we had exclusively women. It wasn't really done on purpose, but that's what happened. Talk to us about how we can reimagine museums as safe spaces, with especially, I think, a focus. It was the day after International Women's Day. It was happening during Black History Month, Belgium. So there was definitely a deep focus on the whole anti-racist, decolonizing and feminizing of museums and the steps that can be undertaken to do that. Which also means that with Open Museum, I'm trying to have very open discussions within the museums with the museum staff on what we consider normal, what we consider neutral, objective, and how to kind of deconstruct all those unconscious biases that have slipped into our way of looking at the world. And so that would, for instance, be, having sincere and open conversations about the male gaze in collections, or how the gender binary is reproduced, explaining the differences between cis and trans, like explaining what heteronormativity is, Eurocentrism, Occidentalism, etc. These are all like very vast terms that can be interpreted in many different ways. But for me, the basis of being able to open yourself up as a museum comes with at least acknowledging that those biases exist, and then kind of taking it from there. Open Museum Brussels is also a website. I'd say that in my ideal world, Open Museum will really grow to both be a source of tools for the Brussels museums to be inspired to continue to work on their diversity and inclusion strategies, but at the same time also be a platform for all the projects that museums are already doing. Because I'm definitely not here to point fingers that museums are not doing the work. It's just that they tend to do it each in their own little corner. There's not necessarily a lot of concertation, right? They don't necessarily exchange a lot about it. I just also want to use Open Museums as a platform to already show off what is already done, and obviously how all of that can be improved. So these are just some screenshots of the website, but I do invite you to have a look at it yourself. And then I've already talked about the 5 Ps, right? So personnel, public, programming, partnerships, and place. But for me, when you talk about those 5 Ps and how you can apply certain strategies to open up your institution, I think all of it falls flat if you don't ask the important question, which is the P of power. Because what it all comes down to, you can implement grassroots movements within museums, but if the directors or the council board, or basically the gatekeepers, the people that choose what will and will not be implemented in a museum, as long as you don't have those on your side, it all kind of falls flat. But that also needs to be a questioning of how do you redistribute that power, right? And obviously you need to work together with directors who might have that vision, who might be open to question, you know, does a museum work best with just one director and then a very hierarchic system, or are there maybe ways to change that? It's not up to me to impose whatsoever to the museums, but I do think it's my task with Open Museum to ask that question. I'm very often inspired by other players in the cultural sector, like, for instance, the theater world, where we see a lot more duo or even trio directorships, right? Because they realize that it doesn't always work, that one person is a financial genius and knows how to talk with people and has a huge creative out-of-the-box kind of brain. But for now, at least on a Brussels level, but maybe Olga and Kim will have other experience to share, I feel it's still quite classic. And so with Open Museum as well, because I do often feel quite alone because I coordinate this project alone, I asked for funds to be able to hire a think tank, because the P of power also comes with budgeting, and deciding how you distribute power is also how you distribute your budget. And so I set a budget apart for throughout the year of 2021 to have a think tank that is going to help me with writing these recommendations and kind of be the link between what Open Museum wants to go to and then those kind of co-reflection sessions that I want to organize within and with the museum staff. And to do this, I sent out an open call, which was very straightforward. It was just a Google form, 2 questions to be answered, no fancy CVs, no motivation letters of 10 pages, just very clearly, what do you think about the mission of Open Museum? And can you share a good and a bad experience you've had in the museums? And those responses really helped me and a whole external jury to then pick these 6 people who obviously have a big heart and love for culture and museums, but don't necessarily work within our sector. However, all these people on a personal and a professional level are activists. So they are activists in the domains of LGBTQ rights, gender rights, anti-racism fights, against ageism. You know, we have a wonderful non-binary trans person who has written already a manifesto on how cultural spaces could become safer spaces. And on top of that, there's 3 extra people who have volunteered to join the think tank. And that is someone who's a jurist and who works for the Institution of Human Rights, someone who works for Article 27, which is all about making culture accessible to people who are in socioeconomic difficulties, and then someone of Pasmurail, which is an organization that trains institutions to become more accessible to people with a disability. And what's really interesting with bringing these people together is that I get to take off my museum glasses and actually hear what is going on in their communities and what they feel are some of the barriers why they maybe would be less inclined to go to a museum. And so the whole point of 2021 is to bring those people and their concerns around the same table as the museums, because I don't think you can ask the museums to write a diversity charter to include certain communities if you're not gonna include those communities in, you know, the setup, the conception of those brainstorming sessions. So yeah, I hope this is clear enough. Like I said, I was also kind of going to jump off of some of the stuff that Olga and Kim are going to talk about, but then maybe we can do that during the Q&A. I'm sorry for my rocky start, but I hope I made up for it. And I'm definitely open for questions. I always feel very weird talking to my computer like this. I am 100% a person who loves dialogue, so I'm looking forward to your questions and also to, you know, talk about this with my 2 other colleagues here that are gonna do their presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gladys. It was very inspiring, actually, and your start was great because then we had a real, you know, full immersion in what you are doing. Very interesting. I look forward to the conversation later. Now it's time for Olga, and I'll share
I'm trying to get out of my presentation, but I don't know. I'm really bad with Teams. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
And Juicy, I will try to do it myself because I think it should work now, but we'll just give it a go, okay? So thank you, Gladys. Also very interesting. I will just try to do this, and I hope it. Do you see my screen?
Yes, but if you off your camera, Olga, could be nice for the recording.
Yes.
Thank you.
So so now you see me too?
Yes. Do you want to try moving the slides so that we see if they are actually working?
Okay, just hold on. Up. Do you see? Okay.
Yes, great.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm so happy now. Okay, so I'm going to start. If there's a problem, you just give a yell because I can't see any one of you and I can't see a chat either. So just call out. Thank you very much.
Attentive.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited about this presentation. So I'm Olga. I work for FARO, as Juicy said, the Flemish Institute for Cultural Heritage. And I also work part-time for the Vrije Universiteit Brussel. And today I would like to talk to you about museums, social responsibility, activism, and agonism. And more in particular, I would like to share some thoughts and insights from museums in Flanders. So this is a short overview. So first I will just give you a brief overview. What does FARO do? Then I will say something more about museums policy in Flanders. Thirdly, I will go into participation, and fourthly, I will just go into this major challenge that the international museum world is facing today, the challenge of social responsibility, of activism, and so on. Okay, so FARO, just to let you know, so we have a website, of course, and we have one page in French. So we are l'Institution Flamande du Patrimoine Culturel. Please have a look at our website there. So what do we do? So we work for the cultural heritage sector, and cultural heritage in Flanders means that we work for museums, archives, also local heritage cells. These are really local heritage organizations, are very important in Flanders. Of course, we also work with organizations that deal with intangible heritage, and we also have several heritage service providers. So what do we do? Actually, we are an institution between the Flemish government and this cultural heritage sector. So we are really this kind of interface, this organization in between. And our main goal is really to help these professional heritage workers. So we work for these people, but also with heritage workers. That's very important because we really take on this participative approach in our work. So what do? We give advice. We also organize trainings. We organize conferences. We have a journal, the FARO tijdschrift. Of course, we also have a website. We also do research. And also a major task is that we are some kind of platform. So we organize meetings, for example, for museums, meetings with museum directors. So maybe you have heard of the Vlaams Museumoverleg. That's a big meeting of museum directors in Flanders. And we meet up every month now in a digital way. For example, yesterday we met with with 50 museum directors, and there we discuss policy issues, but also, of course, museological issues, all these things. And just to give you more idea about this, for example, the reopening of museums in Belgium, in Flanders, FARO played an important role there, together also with ICOM, to really get this reopening done. So just to give you this idea. On our website, you can also find a short video of 1 minute and 10 seconds that will also give you a very comprehensive view on my organization. Okay. So, in Flanders, we do not really have a separate museums policy. We have a cultural heritage policy, and museums are part of this policy and also part of this legislation. So we have a cultural heritage decree, it's a specific legislation, and museums are part of it. Just to say this, and it's important, and as you all know, I guess it's the same thing everywhere in Belgium, but it's important to keep this in mind also when we think about museums taking on social responsibility or activist museums. We should never forget, of course, that all of our museums, or let's say the majority of museums, have a very strong relationship with governments. And the same thing is the case in Flanders, obviously. So the majority of our museums actually depend on a local government. They depend on this government for financial support. And well, this is of course very important because the relationship is very much interwoven, intertwined. Next to the local governments, we also have this Flemish government, and of course our Minister of Culture, Jan Bon, is the minister of this Flemish, is the Minister of Culture in this Flemish government. And this government is responsible for, well, of course, this cultural heritage policy and also for the cultural heritage decree. It's important in a more symbolic way that you have a policy that's, that's there for the whole of Flanders and the Flemish-speaking part of Brussels, by the way. But of course, it's also important because this Flemish government also gives museums and other heritage organizations an additional funding. So, of course, that's also very important to keep in mind. But for example, also at this level, it's the Flemish government that will define which organization is a museum and which one is not, just to give you an idea. So we are part of a cultural heritage policy, and well, our name also of my institute is FARO, and FARO is it's a city in Portugal, but far more important is that we are named after a convention. So, and this is the FARO Convention of the Value of Cultural Heritage. And we are named after this convention, of course, for a reason. Because what does this convention say? It says, as you can read here together with me, that cultural heritage, it's about things going on in society. It's about human rights. It's about democracy. So what they are saying here is that the value and the meaning of cultural heritage, of collections, of intangible heritage, is not really in the objects and places and in the intangible heritage itself. No, the value is in the meanings and the values that people, communities attribute to this heritage. And this is a very important perspective for FARO, but also for the way we look in Flanders at cultural heritage. So you see this very specific way of looking also at museums. Maybe or maybe not, but I think that this is quite obvious. When you talk about involving people who give meaning to heritage, you are talking about participation. And exactly that's very important, a very important concept in our policy and in the way cultural heritage organizations work in Flanders. That's this very idea of participation. So it's really at the core of the way that organizations and people are trying to work. It's really about these questions: how to involve, engage people, communities with this heritage. So also in our decree, in our legislation, and now we're working with a decree, the Cultural Heritage Decree of 2017, participation is a very important concept. But not only participation. Very recently, just now in April 2021, our Minister of Culture, Jan Bon, has presented his new vision note on cultural heritage. And what's also a very important key word in his vision note is the idea of multiple perspectives, multiple voices, polyphony, the polyphonic view on cultural heritage. Now, what does this mean? Of course, you can imagine it's about really engaging all these communities, all these different voices, all these different perspectives on heritage. But it's also about the narratives that we are telling. It's about telling different, multiple narratives. It's not about just one dominant narrative. So we are really in this kind of flow currently, that we're really moving from participation to this idea of more a polyphonic view on heritage and so on. You can also read this in the context of contested heritage. That's also a very important topic today. Difficult heritage, of course, as the colonial heritage is a very clear example. But of course, if you talk about this kind of heritage, you have to talk with a lot of people, and this will also bring about debate and discussion. And we should, I think, also in this line of thinking, be ready for discussion and conflict. So these are really also challenges that museums, also in Flanders, have to face today or are facing today. And this brings me to, well, already the final part of my presentation, and that really is this major challenge. Because when you talk about participation, multiple perspectives and so on, basically we're talking about museums and their social responsibility. The responsibility they take on at this social level, really. Of course, as you know, also being museum studies students, this is not really new. I think in the museum world, we have been talking about inclusive museums, museums taking on this social responsibility since the 60s and the 70s of the 20th century. So if you just count back, we've already been talking about this thing for it's 60 years, I guess. So it's in a sense, it's nothing new. But I think what's kind of new and what has been happening the last, well, 10 years maybe, is that now we're much more talking really about museum activism. And if I may recommend you two books, I would like to recommend these two. On the right side, you see Museums in a Troubled World by Robert Janes. And at the left-hand side, you see Museum Activism, a book by also Robert Janes and Richard Sandel. They edited this book. And this one was published at the beginning of 2019. And it's very interesting to take this book and see how they approach what they mean by museum activism. And I will just take you into this book for just an instant, just to give you an idea what they mean by an activist museum practice. So first, I will just give some quotes and say something more about it. An interesting quote are these ones. First, they quote Words themselves, and they say culture, but you can also say museums. It's not about leisure, no, and it's not about entertainment, and it's not about social media. No, it's fundamentally about asking ourselves how we are leading our lives. That's what it's all about. It's about thinking critically. It's about taking on responsibility in society. So Sandel and Janes, in their introduction, they really put forward these very, very big questions. And they say, okay, why does your museum exist? That's the first question. And not because you have a collection or you have something to tell. No, you should really go dig into this question. Why do you exist? What's your purpose? Secondly, what changes are you trying to affect? This is also a very interesting one. And changes, it's not about what new exhibition are we going to set up. No, what they mean here is what changes in society are you trying to affect? That's what they're talking about. And also, okay, what solutions will you generate? What are your values? And also, what are your non-negotiable values? And also referring to what Gladys said a few minutes ago, this is, of course, also really about values like gender neutrality, anti-discrimination. And they say, as a museum, you should really put these things forward and say, these are our basic values, and we will not discuss them. They are the foundation, really, of what we do. And so, okay, they do say they demand a lot of museums, as you can imagine. And also, you could also say they demand a lot of other cultural heritage organizations, but let's just focus on museums here. And they do acknowledge that this is not easy. So they say, okay, and it may be easy when museums have to contribute to these global problems in society, because that's what they're talking about. They have to contribute to climate change, to species extinction, poverty, homelessness, discrimination, and you name it. This is not easy, but they do say, well, you are a museum, you are a public institution, and people look up at you. They want you to take responsibility. They go to museums for inspiration, but also for guidance. So it's your responsibility to really dig into these problems and well, see what you can do there. So thinking of it further or thinking it through, this means, okay, then you really have to think about what you do as a museum. This means you have to really redefine your purpose and also standards of museum work. And it also means that you really want to make a commitment to people, to communities, to the world, that you will really do something and work in a sustainable way and have this kind of impact. So just to conclude this little part here, if we can just sum up what is an activist museum practice, I guess the first characteristic is it challenges the immorality of inaction. They say a museum should act. You cannot just close your eyes, look inward. No, you have to look outwards. You have to look into society and you have to do something. And if you do not do anything, then this is immoral. It's quite a heavy statement, but that's what they're saying. Secondly, they say we have to enable museum workers to be citizens. Everyone, maybe not you, but maybe in the future, you will work in museums. You are a museum worker, but you are also a citizen, and you have also a personal responsibility as a citizen. So you can take agency, you can take this responsibility, and you should. Thirdly, they say, and that's more like a broader view, it's time that the global museum community, so not only you as an individual museum, but the global museum community should really speak out clearly, forcefully. Because we all know we are these public institutions. We get, if we're fortunate, funding from a government or another funder, but we have a public mission. And in that sense, we are kind of privileged, but just use your privileged position. So that's what they're saying. Okay, so no, just to finish my presentation, but very important, of course, let's go to Flanders. And what we see there, do we have activist museums in Flanders? Question mark. The things that I've been talking about right now are also issues that we really discuss amongst museums in Flanders. It's really top of mind, and especially in this working group of museums. It's a working group that in the beginning started with a group called Museums with Contested Collections. But now we have evolved, because there are a lot of more museums have also joined us. We have evolved to a working group, museums that work on polyphonic views and so on. And so we have really broadened this working group. These are the museums that were involved from the beginning. Museum Dr. Ghislain in Ghent, in Flanders Fields Museum in Yper, Kazerne d'Ossin in Mechelen, Malines, Red Starline Museum in Antwerp, the Africa Museum, as you will very know, in Tervuren. Pharaoh is also involved, and now also Diva in Antwerp, Musée in Ostend, Industrie Museum in Ghent, Hof van Busleiden in Mechelen, but also MAS Antwerp and the museums in Bruges. They have all joined this group. And so what do we do in this group? We talk a lot, we discuss about all these issues. Social responsibility, what does it mean? Multiple voices, what does it mean? Participation, cultural diversity, and so on. So now, and do they want to be activists? Are we activist museums? Maybe just also for your information, we have also published some things. In 2016, we published Museum van het Gevoel. It's in Dutch, unfortunately. And this was also a book that deals with the idea of museums taking social responsibility. There are also a lot of examples in the book, so maybe that's interesting to you. And in 2020, we published The Agonist Museum. And that's really a publication made by this working group. And you can download this one at the publications page at the FARO website. We also, as I said, have a journal, FARO, the tijdschrift voor Cultureel Erfgoed. You can also download this one, our magazine or journal, from our website. And in 2019, we had a special issue on multiple voices and conflict. This may also be interesting to you, because there we also discuss the idea of agonism, for example. So this is maybe very interesting for you too. Now, just to say, just to illustrate the different museums. So in Flanders Fields Museum, dealing with World War I, is a partner. But why are they a partner in this group? Because it's of course about sharing insights on the First World War, but it's also and mainly what do they think is important is that they discuss politics of remembrance. It's about whose soldiers who died are we remembering, and whose did we forget. And that's really true, because in the past there was a major focus on, of course, the soldiers who died and who came from Belgium and Europe and the Commonwealth. But, for example, a lot of soldiers also died who came from Africa, from Morocco, and so on, even Pakistan, you name it. They came from everywhere. So this is a very important issue. How do we also engage these this culture of memories and remembering? The Red Starline Museum in Antwerp, the baseline of this museum is people on the move. They tell you something about the Red Star Line. That was a very important shipping company that helped people in the past cross the oceans to go to the promised land in the States and Canada and so on. But what is a very important question for them today is more this one. How do we deal with migration, refugees also today? Kazerne Dossin in Mechelen, it's a museum on the Second World War, Holocaust, human rights, but this is the underlying question. They think it's very much is important also, how to deal with polarization in society. Museum Dr. Ghislain in Ghent, it's about psychiatry, the history of psychiatry, the history of mental health care. But what's the underlying question that's important today there? It's this one, how to remove taboos on mental health issues, and what role can our museum play in this discussion? The Africa Museum, probably the best known also in this meeting. Of course, this is such a contested museum, really contested histories, and the main question there is really how to decolonize this. How should we deal with this colonial past? How should we go on in the future? Okay, so but are these museums activist? Do they call themselves activist museums? And then I should say the answer is no. They do think about all these issues, but currently they say we do not really want to call ourselves activists, because, well, it's so difficult to do this, because we are funded, as I said in the beginning, by these governments. We are so part of these government structures. It's impossible for us to really be like open activist museums. So they try to do it in another way. They say, okay, collections and the work on collections and intangible heritage and communities, this is key of a museum, what we do. This is our line of work. So we should keep this. We should also keep research as an important the basic function of our museum. We are scientific museums, institutions, we do knowledge work. So we also think this is very important as museums that we do this. But on the other hand, we will do this with a very, very open mind. We will really try to do this in a polyphonic way. We will involve communities. We really want to be open-minded, have these discussions. So as Gladys also told you in the Open Museum project, where it's important to have museums that are safe spaces, I guess it's the same thing happening in Flanders. They really want to be safe, but also brave spaces, because you really have to open up and also talk and dare to talk, really. You have this you need this bravery, this courage also to open up and take responsibility. So museums in Flanders, well, and actually these museums in particular, they do want to take up this role, but they're really searching now. It's really a process. So we're not there yet. We are still really looking and how should we do this? And it's not easy, but they really want to evolve into this direction, be these places for encounter, for debate. And then this is really, now I'm really finishing up. When talking, while talking, discussing, reading, we came to the conclusion, the very conclusion right now, but it's really moving, so it's never final. It's just one phase in the trajectory, and we thought that agonism is a very interesting word, a very interesting concept that is more suitable for now for these Flemish museums than activism. And maybe if you know this concept, it's a concept that was very broadly promoted and also discussed by Chantal Mouffe, the Belgian political philosopher who lives in France. And she really has written a lot about democracy, because agonism is really about democracy. It's about having discussions with different people, disagreeing, but still going further. So it's about conflict, but also about conflict handling. And well, that's a very interesting idea also for these museums in Flanders. Instead of thinking about activist museums, let's say that we are more like agonist museums, that we create these spaces, the public spaces, that we really encourage people to talk, to discuss, but also help them think critically, because that's so important. And well, that's really what we're doing right now. And of course, this also levels up with working with communities, with people, really going to this into this direction of sharing of knowledge, sharing expertise, and so on. My dog starts barking, so it's time to finish up. This is work in progress, as you can imagine. So I will just stop here and have we can have a discussion later on. I've also added my my personal details on the slides, so you can contact me whenever you like. So thank you very much, and I will try to stop sharing right now.
Thank you, Olga, for your inspiring presentation as well. I'll leave the floor to Kim, and then we will have time for questions and comments after Kim's presentation.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm trying to then again share my screen.
If you can put your camera, Kim, also will be nice to record with you.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Where's my presentation?
Okay.
Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Here it is. And I'm not sure my camera is working well now. If
no,
oh. It should be on.
We don't see your presentation. We see your screen. Okay, we see.
Okay.
Okay, if the camera doesn't work, don't worry. We'll follow.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you. We can see the presentation.
Okay.
Okay.
So yes, hello everyone. My name is Kim, And first of all, I thank you, Josie and Manuelina, for inviting me to be part of this webinar series, in particular because I have a kind of a hybrid background, so I'm very honored to participate in this official museological context. In fact, I'm a scenographer, and since the end of my studies in 2017, and after delivering my master thesis entitled "How Can Exhibition Design Help Raise Public Awareness About Contemporary Issues in a Museum of Society?", I had the opportunity to work for about 3 years for several participatory projects. First, I was employed by the organization A République as the coordinator and facilitator of the project Public à l'œuvre, for which I led 2 projects in 2 museums. And currently, using the same participatory methodology, I work with the organization Article 27 that Gladys briefly described. I work with them in another museum. And between the 2 museal experiences, I worked for a European educational project called the BATE Project, which is a nomadic school that gives children opportunity to reflect on important values such as alterity, respect, and fight against discriminations. And yet I find it interesting to combine and make bridges between pure educational sectors and the museum field, because it's interesting to see how the general goals of both are similar, if not even the same. But of course, the 2 sectors are working completely differently with different settings and different concrete outputs. And meanwhile, I continue a personal research between theory and practice on what I think should be the role of museums today, because I do think that we as a sector have to haste on the practical side of the question. And therefore, I have to start next week a research residency at ESA Saint-Luc-Liège. And my objective there is to clarify how a scenographer, as an author and as an artist, let's say, could be an important and an essential element upstream the conception of sensual and committed exhibitions. And for this webinar, I'm going to present you more in detail Public à l'œuvre, literally publics at work. So I'm going to present you my experience in this project, its realities and its methodology. And then I'm going to share with you what I learned and what I see today about participation in museum, more generally speaking. So Public à l'œuvre is a participatory project of co-creating exhibitions from the primary ideas to its actual production. And the project and its methodology were created in 2013 by the non-profit Flemish organization MOS, who has now become BAM. And I took the role of implementing the project in Wallonia, the French part of Belgium. And through this presentation, I will give some concrete examples to illustrate what I say. And those examples are extracted from the 2 projects that I worked for. That is, the first one was in Musée de Folklore de Tournai, and the second one was in Musée Bellevue in Brussels. So the process of the project, whose duration is about 7 to 12 months in total, is divided in 4 phases like this. So the first phase is an internal preparation inside the museum with the external organization and facilitation team. And in this case, it was actually only constituted by myself, at least for the 2 projects that I've done. And that's also, I think, an intriguing point of the discussion. And it sounds familiar with what Gladys said about feeling alone in this kind of initiatives. So I'm skipping the logistical part of the thing because obviously, like any other particular project, participatory or not, it needs a lot of internal preparation. But maybe a particularity of the entire Public Alert global intention was that the idea was not only to co-create exhibitions in each respective institution who took part in the project, but also to co-support a whole movement and a mindset of sort of say a potential new age of participation in Wallonia, and create a local network around Public Alert by organizing interventions with all the museums that were interested and or involved in the project, still in Wallonia. And in that way, the idea was to move on step by step together, learning from each other experience and so on. And I'll talk about this later also because it actually unfortunately not happened this way. And for myself, it's interesting to try to explain why and what questions it generates. The second phase consists in the preparation workshops with the group of selected participants. And first, one of the usual questions we had about the process is, how do we find and select participants? And it's not that complex, actually. We did simply a call for participation, people apply, and we did the selection based on motivation and diversity of profiles. And that's kind of pretty much it. And I'm kind of spoiling my own speech like this when I'm saying this now, but in fact, I think organizing participatory project is actually not that difficult. And it's the same process, whatever the level of participation. And it's just to say that we need motivated people at both sides, organizers and participants, and just focus on the plan. And here you see the flyers we gave around for finding participants in Brussels, where we had more than 100 applications in the end. And as you can see, we chose a pretty nice and fun visual, especially to try to, straight from the beginning, contextualize the project in the concerned city. For example, in Brussels, one of the a symbol of gathering people around a common interest, whatever our profile, are the frietkots, the little houses for French fries. And we also asked the people in the application form to tell us their favorite sauce on French fries. In a funny way, it's saying that it's, of course, a kind of a bonus question. And it could sound simple, light and just fun, but actually it was an important detail of the whole project in the end, because the selected participants say that this cool side of the application form was had really amplified actually their natural motivation to participate, because with this kind of little detail they could feel the empathic and human vibe of the project, while being still a super serious and demanding project. So once we have a group of 20 people in average, with different ages and backgrounds, we prepare them to live the entire adventure as a group together by having those 4 workshops that allow everyone to serve on the same level of reflections, sort of say, because it's important to precise that we are not talking about level of knowledge or experience in art and museum and everything, but it's really about creating a safe and fair basement around a unique common goal, which is making a quality exhibition together. And therefore, we need a strong common vision on why are we doing this. And yeah, maybe like unlike other type of common citizen initiative in society that have similar ideals of co-creation and group experience, I think it's noticeable that museum can't afford, so to say, can't afford to let do people what they freely want, because museum institutions still obviously have specific and demanding goals in terms of content. I say this because it was often a remark that some professionals were asking about the quality of the content by having this maximal participation co-curation of an exhibition. So I think it's a whole subject in itself to discuss around that quality content, but it's not exactly the focus here. So the 4 workshops, they were like this. So the first was about observing art. The second was about telling stories through objects. The second one that was. The third one was discovering museum backstage, and the fourth one was creating a concept and defining a thematic for an exhibition. And for this, we used a precise methodology designed by the organization MOST itself. And as you can see, they developed a complete handbook of it, which is in Dutch. I think they are writing an English version for this year's SICA Congress, but I'm not sure. And that handbook is mainly based on the theories of educational researchers such as George Hein, David Kolb, Howard Gardner, and Michael Parsons, and I try to pronounce it well, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Of course, this can echo with a lot of other social constructivist methodologies and theories that we probably all heard about here and there, and well, therefore I'm going to pass through this quite fast, because the main thing that I retain of my experience in this is that for making such protocols of participation work well with a quite big group of people is that it's all about being able to put informality into professionality and to lead the group into a huge motivating and enthusiastic common experience. And in other words, it's to say that the project has also has to really make sense for all the participants in any way, which also can simply be I come here because I like the group. And it's obviously not the only thing that make the project success and concretize, but somehow it's really the glue for holding the group's motivation together until the end, because without their motivation, well, we just can't complete the mission. The third phase is the conception of the exhibition. And participation rhymes with collective intelligence. And no matter the context of the project, it flows well as long as we have built beforehand, as I said, a solid group spirit and a fair idea of teamwork based on the fact that on one side, there is no bad proposition. And on the other side, we still do have deadlines and choices to make. And this is also the tricky part, I think, because it especially includes the fact that we as professionals have to avoid to affect the group's ideas. And it's a difficult exercise somehow for us, because sometimes, for example, in my position in the group, I just spontaneously had a lot of ideas concerning the scenography, the museography, and so on. And wanting to share those ideas with the group could be a well-intentioned action, but the challenge is try to still not influence the group with clear ideas, but rather support theirs by giving little tips on how they could think this idea further and so on. And for me, I often say that I see this as making our skills and expertise available to the group and not performing them for the group. And as a result, Public à l'œuvre is definitely providing very original and quality exhibitions with and inside any type of museum and based on any type of collections and themes. And just the titles of the exhibitions are explicitly and efficiently, I think, out of the box. The first one in Tournai was Faux Contact, which is literally loose connection, I think. And the second one in Brussels was C'était mieux demain, which is literally it was better tomorrow. So the fourth and last phase is the production of the exhibition. And as I said in the beginning, the participants of Public à l'œuvre practice every step of the exhibition, including its production and everything that is included in it, like scenography, communication, and everything. And of course, they are helped by museum people and also by the financial support of the cooperative SERA in our case. And to work it out all well, there's definitely an idea of we do with what we have. It's a simple idea, but actually we do have a lot when we work with a whole group of people, because we have a lot of ideas, a lot of active forces and material possibilities. And particularly, for example, we can we have to have in mind the idea that we can use the skills of everyone if we have some particular skills in the group. For example, do we have graphical skills in the team? Well, if no, then it's no stress. We just delegate the work, and that's being efficient. But if yes, someone wants and to share with us their graphical skills or something, and then we try to do it ourselves as a group, and that's being efficient and proud at the same time. So here you see some images of the exhibition Faux Contact, whose theme was the smartphone and all the ancient tools that it replaces all in one. And that was in the museum de folklore de Tournai. So it's really linked with the collections of the museum, of course. And the last thing that I want to share is, again, a detail, but I think not to be forgotten, is that during the process, we always have to keep the original and cool and spontaneous side of the process, of the spirit of the project, because I think it will make some differences, maybe not particularly in the exhibition offer itself, but in the general project and common experience of the process, because what participants retain of the whole project experience is as important as the result of it. Now this is the last part, and I'm not going to extend the content or the making of the project, and neither the theoretical part of the methodology, because actually what I wanted to share with you today is my point of view on the fact that this kind of initiative is actually not new at all, as Olga mentioned. And I'm really happy you said this, Olga, because we did not consult each other, but it's really my idea at the moment is those kind of initiatives are not new at all, because we all know that the ideological wave of participation and inclusiveness all started with eco-museums back in the 70s. And knowing this, since the end of my studies, I kept wondering, why is it then still not working, so to say? Not the participation, but the idea of museums that are really anchored in the society, and the idea of museums that are really actors of change, as we thought it might be possible with the emergence of the term Museum of Society in '91. And So I wonder always why are we still here to speak and try to sell, sort of say, the benefits of participation to reach that global goal? Because it's clear enough now how efficient, how relevant, and how necessary participation is. And a project like Public à l'œuvre showed me that it's even not complicated to reach maximal participation in museum, as long as the museum professionals cooperate. And here, cooperation for me is not only about allowing the project to exist inside the museum walls, and not even to temporarily adapt or work to make one participatory project and then kind of archive it once it's over, even if it's not intentional, but I think it's quite often happen like this, that, well, because it takes so much energy that it's not always possible to imagine to do so many and constant participatory projects. And to me, we reach here the main point of my idea and my interest is that I think that every museum can undertake participatory and societal committed projects, and that in that sense, every museum can become a museum of society according to what that term actually includes regarding the missions that it advocates. Because I don't see how why there should be a specific category of this museum, museum of society, and yeah, that really all museums can become a museum of society just for the missions that it advocates. And to me, this can only happen by taking in consideration that a distinction exists between the museum as an institution that has a theoretical big plan of goals and actions, and the museum as a group of professionals who are people that potentially strongly believe that changes can be done in the world, generally speaking, including in the museum field. And in other words, I personally think that it's a matter of scale, because I think it's indeed inefficient. Well, I'm not saying useless, but it's somehow too slow and inefficient to keep trying to edify or to complement visionary theories that have now existed for more than 50 years. And it's definitely time for action, like in every other field, in the global circumstances of multiple crises today. For example, I myself am very sensitive to the climate crisis, which is to me the biggest ever crisis we will have to face. And this kind of crises are more than imminent. And I say the matter of scale because participatory initiatives should not rest on one or two or, few people's shoulders inside an institution or organization. Because, in fact, as I said, for Public à l'œuvre, I was doing actually everything on my own, both coordination and facilitation and everything. And once I unfortunately had to quit my job for reasons external to the project, but internal to the association for which I work, then unfortunately the 5 other museums that were planning to do Public à l'œuvre were kind of left behind without any further vision of a plan for realizing it. And it just did not happen. And well, I always know that there are a lot of people in all the museums thinking and wanting to work for changes, but those people often don't have the time and can't afford to take time for making it happen. And that's why I particularly liked what Gladys said about the Open Museum think tank and the fact that people should get somehow paid to rethink museum. And well, we need to give value to that willpower and know that it takes time and take the time that is necessary to do it. And in other words, what I want to say is that a belief and a commitment to transform and upgrade the societal role of museums cannot be permanent cannot become permanent inside museums if we only rely on nice projects, however effective they might be. We really have to rely on our own will to work for that structural transformation. So for me, activism means finding a balance between our professional interests, values and concerns as citizens, like Olga also said, and it's really, I really like that you said all this, because we actually really did not consult each other, and yeah, really point on the balance between our personal values and concerns as citizens and our professional opportunities of acting, because that is the reality of public alerts process, to put all people's interest in the middle of the action, and it can be scaled up to become a reality for every museum professional. So just to end this, I think that my hybrid career path now is what actually convinced me that there are more strong bridges to create between the theoretical part and the practical part in the museum world. And I think that there's a lot of space for developing functions in between the two parts. And I really hope that this in-between position could be taken by a lot of professionals, whether they initially come from the theoretical part or the practical part. And I think that there is a big place for action research. Yeah, and just to conclude, I concluded my master thesis with those words from Hugues de Varine that I read in a book written by Paul Vres in 1999, because I really believe in this fact, and I hope to contribute to it somehow. And the phrase, the sentence is, "The museum revolution will be radical, or the museum will disappear." So thank you so much for listening. Thanks again, Jules and Manuelina, for the invitation, and I'm really happy to share this moment with you, Olga and Gladys, because you are so inspiring also. And yeah, let's just open the conversation now.
Great, thank you, Kim, for also your inspiring presentation, also this inspiring quote that you use for closing this. So I've already written in the chat, if there are questions, please, or comments or whatever, just don't be shy. Just feel free to raise your hand, write that in the chat, or open your camera and open your microphone. While we wait for some questions, I would like to ask Olga, Gladys, and Kim to comment a bit. I would ask you to talk no more than 5 minutes each. And okay, seen three hands actually. One is Pauline, then Maëlle and Camille. Sorry for my English. And also Olga raised their hands. So Olga, yes, go ahead, Olga, and then I will ask Pauline, Maëlle, and Camille to ask their questions.
Est-ce que Kim peut mettre sa caméra, peut-être, maintenant? Ah, ok, merci.
Olga.
Yes, but I will keep it brief because I would like to hear the questions of the other ones. I would just thank you also, Kim, for your presentation. I also thought it was very interesting. But you said at the end, you said, why is it not working? Eh? Why we have been doing this kind of work or thinking about inclusive museums and so on for so long, and it's not working. It's like you feel a bit disappointed. But I would like to, I just wanted to say that I'm more optimist here. I do think things are changing, but maybe that's my nature, but I actually do think things are changing. Just when I look at Belgium and in Flanders, for example, all these discussions, we are having them with the museum directors. So I also heard this in the presentation of Gladys. That's of course one of the challenges. How do you really involve people in power. That's the way it is. So I do think when they start really reflecting on this, and then we should really try to think differently also about museum power, museum direction. So I do think things are changing. And I also think that it's not like it will all depend on professionals or institutions. I think we have to do everything together. It's about changing a system. It's about changing attitudes. It's really about change in a very, very deep and overall way. So, well, that's just all I wanted to say. And then I'll just keep quiet because I'll give the floor to the others.
Okay, let's listen to the question. Let's start with Pauline.
Okay, thank you for the true presentation. My question is for Kim Capart. I would like to know if in a public à l'œuvre, if there is a lot of participants, and is there people with disease like being blind, deaf, or mentally handicapped? And if it's the case, how to include them in the creation of the project and in the project for the public and the visitors.
If you agree, Kim, I'll collect the questions and then I'll give the floor to you and also to Gladys for the final comment. Second question is Mael. Sorry if I don't pronounce well your name. Mael Gavage.
Excuse my bad English. My question is for both Olga and Gladys. Knowing that the public of cultural institution is in Belgium still mostly Caucasian people of a certain age, do you think it would be useful to educate this audience about the museum's openness to diversity at the same time as making the change to avoid the self-exclusion from a museum no longer meets the standards?
Thank you. Last question is from Camille.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My question is for everyone who wants to reply. Do you think that there is a difference between Flanders, Wallonia and Brussels in relation to participation, inclusion and activism work in museums?
Thank you, Camille. I would ask Kim, then Gladys, and then Olga again to answer and comment. And you have, please, 5 minutes each, because then we have to close the meeting. So, Kim?
Okay, then very quickly, if I remember well, the question is about if there are people participating with some disabilities or something. And the answer is no. And that's maybe also what I meant with the distinction to make between a project and an internal sense of activism inside every museum professional and inside the institution, because Public à l'œuvre is actually really efficient as a project and as for what it intends to reach, which is a co-creation and exhibition. But it's obviously when we launch a call for participation so open, it's still that with the fact we have to deal with the fact that we can't normally reach all the diversity that we want always, and for the efficiency of the project we have to also not push that vision too far, because it's yet it's yet very powerful to be able to co-create an exhibition, and then we don't want to push further than the criteria of diversity, for example. But yes, I think that maybe that's a little bit what I meant between having nice and efficient theoretical and practical projects of participation, but that to get further, we more have to count on, but actually more what Olga said about real activisms, and yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Olga, is it okay if I answer now? Because I know you have a stricter schedule than the rest of us. I think the question about should we also educate whatever you would call our main visitors right now, who usually indeed are white people, highly educated, maybe a bit older as well. And in a sense, I think we do, because it all kind of starts with that, right? And what you usually get in the conversations about diversity and inclusion is that all of a sudden people are going to say that inclusivity work actually excludes the majority, whatever the majority is. So I do think it is important to get these people on board. Maybe that's what I was also trying to refer to when I say I go into the museums and immediately for the whole team. So when I do these kind of workshops on unconscious bias, it is both with like the directors and the cleaning staff and the technical staff, etc., where we kind of try to be more aware of the glasses we look through at the world, and how we can kind of take those off, maybe switch them along. But especially when I'm talking about power and who still is sitting in these power seats, it makes sense that you kind of have to adapt your communication to the way they see the world and are not necessarily conscious of their own biases, and how then together you can kind of deconstruct that without having them feel excluded. But then at the same time, maybe the more radical or activist part of me also sometimes thinks, you know, like you are so used to being catered to, and sometimes you need to just flip the switch to kind of, in French you say taper dans la fourmilière, but to kind of have change exist as well. So for me, I feel like it's a constant balance exercise between trying to make that majority not feel excluded, but at the same time also kind of shaking their foundations. I'm not sure I have cracked the code yet on how to do that exactly, but it's a lot of conversation and dialogue, I said. And then what you said about the Brussels versus Wallonia versus, I mean, I won't speak for Kim and Olga, but what I noticed in Brussels, and which makes it interesting, is that obviously we have a mix of Francophone and Dutch culture. And when it comes to talking about inclusion, for me, Dutch culture in general, and so also Flemish culture, we're way more, you know, let's at least acknowledge there's a problem, and then our conversation should be on how to fix the problem. Whereas on a Francophone level, I am generalizing here, there is still a lot more blah, blah, blah on, yes, but first we need to define what racism and what discrimination exactly means, and then maybe along the line we will get to the solution part. So what's interesting in Brussels is that you kind of have these two, like the very Anglophone, it's an issue, let's fix it, and the more French thing of like, this is a complicated, nuanced topic that we should first dissect before we go on to the solution phase. So I feel like in Brussels you have a mix of both. So yeah, I tend more towards the Anglophone action, but maybe that's also personal. And I do also adapt my speech, whether I am speaking to a French-speaking director, or whether I'm in conversation with a more Dutch Flemish oriented person of staff. So again, it's about dialogue and it's about adapting yourself to who you're having that conversation with. I hope that was helpful as a response.
Really helpful.
Olga, last comments.
Yes, well, also thank you, Gladys, again. I think what you said about how to be inclusive all the way, also for all the well, let's say the kind of majority of white older people and so on, and the others. I completely agree with what you said. So I think that was a very good analysis, and I'll just I just agree upon the analysis, and I won't comment on that any further. What you said about or your question on the differences between Brussels, Flanders, and Wallonia, a very interesting question. Never really reflected on it, to be honest. I'm not sure if I will go that far as Gladys is doing now, making this. Well, maybe you really, of course, experience the differences more than I do. I think that's.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So maybe that's why you are able to make this kind of statement or to this kind of conclusion. To me, I think what's very interesting to Brussels is that Brussels, of course, is it's really a world city. It's a city where there's so many people and there's a really big diversity. And what's really interesting is that so many people are also involved in these talks and in these conversations. And I think that's interesting. And also when I hear about Open Museum, I'm not sure what Gladys has to say about this, but I do have the idea that it's far more activist as for example, Sandel and Robert James, according to their definition, than not what we're doing in Flanders. And I'm not sure what's really going on in Wallonia. I have to be honest at that level too. What is going on there? I'm not sure. But maybe that's my problem, because I should get to know or get my information better. But I'm not saying that what's going on in Flanders is of course what we should all do. I think it's really about making change, being also a bit activist, and also maybe daring more sometimes. But as I said, I think what's really very present in Flanders, it's well, the idea that we have these governments and that's so difficult to say something against governments, which I can understand completely, because you get funding from these governments, but still you also have to make change. Thus, how do you make change? And I think maybe in Brussels, there's this atmosphere where things can happen that maybe are not really happening elsewhere in our country, because it's Brussels, because also these museums are not government funded. I think there are a lot of museums that are more, or initiatives that are private and or that get funding in another way. And it's difficult when you have a crisis like COVID, but it's also, of course, sometimes an advantage because you are more free to speak. So I really would love to dig into this, because we are such a small country, and it's so sad that we don't have these discussions more. I hope this was also helpful to you.
Thank you.
I see Kim with her hands raised, and also Manuelina raised her hand. So Manuelina,
if I can.
Okay, Kim, go ahead, and then Manuelina. Okay.
Or if I can just add, in fact, I didn't answer to that question, but I think it's also really relevant and interesting to see that actually the Public à l'œuvre project was kind of an importation of Flanders. And it feels strange to have to import a methodology that actually was creating somewhere else in Belgium, and to practice it in Wallonia and make it a separate path of action. So I found it always a bit relevant for how the structure of Belgium, how Belgium is functioning. But about a more global policy and policy about participation in the Wallonia field of museum. I'm not so sure there's something that is existing as strong as Brussels Museums Network, for example, or FARO, that is really active in both in theory and in practice. And because we have an organization called MSW, Musées et Sociétés en Wallonie, I think. But I don't see this like a real action plan. It's more like well, always gathering around nice topics on all this kind of discussions, but I don't think there's a group or a global action wave in Wallonia. That's why working for Public à l'œuvre, I was really sad that it kind of fell down when I quit the job, and I was like, but how come it's not possible that when I quit, but the 5 other projects are not happening, and I think it's you, Gladys, also that you say that the gatekeepers, well, when the gatekeepers are not fully and positively involved in what we as workers believe in, then it easily all drop down, and that's what unfortunately happened when I worked in the organization I mentioned. It's like there was an internal problem in the organization which made me quit, and then just the project was not linked to the organization. It was the project, the methodology, and that comes from somewhere else, and then it was not living inside the organization, and that's a big point that I find also interesting to think about for more project like this.
Okay, Manuelina, very quick, and also Gladys.
Yes, I know we are running against the time. Thank you very much. I only want to say to you how happy I am that after this long tour around the world, we land in Belgium, and I could learn with you about this very special and interesting experience. There's still a lot to do, but I'm very happy to hear this optimism from Olga, to say she sees the things changing, and we will do our best here as professor, having contact with the youngers. We can change their views or open, not change, but help to open their views to other perspectives, and this, I think, is what can change the future. So thank you very much for what we could have today, and we will think about strategies to stay together and continue this museum people dialogue after finishing the series of webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gladys.
Yes, this was also mainly to thank everyone here, and maybe also on a more inspirational note, I hope that the people who are attending this conference are also really like the next generation, and like Manuelina just said as well, they are not afraid to rethink, right, the structures, because what Kim says breaks my heart, because I know exactly what you mean, that sometimes when one person leaves an organization, a whole project falls flat. And that's why I think it's so important that even if Open Museum started as a projet à part, that it's completely integrated in the DNA of Brussels museums in general. And I really think that with our new policies, like our strategic plan for the next 4 years, I've managed to do that, to really have it as one of the pillars. But so I'm hoping that the people here today, you enter into the museum sector, and I hope you will climb up, and that if you're ever in a position of power, or you're in a position where you could change something, even if that also means changing your own way of looking at structures, I hope you take up the opportunity. But obviously it's a work in progress, it's a group process, but I just wanted to leave on that note and thank everyone, and Juicy and Manuelina in particular for inviting me to participate.
And thank you all and all the people that stayed. And let me just invite you for the closing session of Monday. If you can, that would be a very exciting moment. We are thinking to show up half an hour before to exchange last comments. And if you have questions you want to pose to the president of ICOM, Garlandini, and the chair of ICOFOM, Bruno Brulon, which that will be there. And also we are thinking of having a sort of virtual reception after 5, from 5 to 5:30. If you want, of course, feel free to bring your drink, and that would be a moment for networking and for discussing informally possible next steps. And you will be updated through the Bubble Tower email for possible next steps, because we have started this conversation and we know that further things can still be done. So sorry for wrapping this up with hurry. I know that Olga has to go. I also have to go. I'm sorry for that, but there will be time for digging into it. Again, I invite you on Monday. If you can, please join us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.